Talk is here. Power 102 Digital.
This is Hard Talk Power 102 Digital Wednesday. In my company as host of the program today, we have Fareed Ali as our host, and I'll allow him to introduce his guests and his co-host, if I should call Dr. Tanyuk that. Good afternoon, Fareed.
A special good afternoon to you, David, and a particular good afternoon to the most important president in Trinidad and Tobago in DC, President Mrs. Beverly Ramsey Moore, and also manager of Castle and Jazz Orchestra. Thank you so much, Mrs. Ramsey Moore, for making yourself available to us. I know that you have a busy schedule and it's a busy season, so it's really good to make contact with you and have you share with us this afternoon your presence.
Hi, good afternoon.
Accompanying me is Dr. Richard Tanyok. He normally does the co-hosting of the program with me. So if we have any technical musical questions, myself being just someone who sits in the teachers, I sit in the North Stand with no musical knowledge. So Dr. Tanyok has that musical touch that he may be able to ask something about the music of the band that I may not be able to address you on. But again, in looking at Cats and Jammers Steel Orchestra, for the listening public this afternoon, it's another program, another one in the series of interviews we've been having with national steel orchestras. We're featuring Cats and Jammers Steel Orchestra, a band situated in Black Rock, Tobago. The band is no stranger to the national musical landscape. From my examination, Mrs. Ramsey Moore, of your band CV, in 1967, the band got National Tune of Choice, a composition by Rupert McCarty, Funicula. I hope I got that correct. And then in 2004 and 2008, the band won the Pan in the 21st Century competition. Also, National Panoramic Media Band Champions 2011, 2012, and this year they're the defending champions. Even if in looking further into the depth of the band, the orchestra, this band is no stranger to the national landscape. The band performed for Queen Elizabeth II as way back in 1963 at Government House in Tobago. The band performed for Mr. Nelson Mandela in 2004, whilst he was, in Tobago.
Wow.
3 generations of Ramseys. Your father, yourself, your
Funicula.
nephew. It's a lot of tradition. I must say that this band is not new to the national psyche. It's certainly not new to Tobago. Joining us here also is Mr. Maxon Ramsey, he being the captain of the orchestra. Thank you so much, Mr. Ramsey, for adding the benefit of your expertise and experience to our program this afternoon additionally.
Yes, thank you. I'm here.
Yeah, good. When I look at the band's history, though you would have won titles along the way, the band has an active history outside of the regular season, if I may put it that way. You all have been performing in hotels, Arnos Vale, Blue Haven, Crusoe, Mount Irving, Turtle Beach, which is now Starfish, Grafton Hotel. So the band has an active presence even outside of the carnival season. It's clearly a very active steel orchestra.
Yes, that's right.
If we were to go so far to look at the band's heritage, between 1960 and 1970, Cats and Jammers Steel Orchestra has won every Tobago Music Festival in that time period. The CV goes on and on. I saw that, I read that when you all won your first national competition, a stamp in commemoration of the band's achievement was also minted. So in terms of accolades, in terms of tradition and your history, nothing can really touch this. Tell us something about your involvement with the Steel Orchestra, with Cats and Jammers, Maxon. How long have you been assuming the reins of captain, and how has the season been going for you at this particular stage?
Well, I'm involved in Cats and Jammers for over 34 years now. right? I recently become captain about close to 6 to 7 years now, right? And being a captain of a steel band is a lot of hard work, right? To control, especially the young people now. So there's a lot of hard work coming out from me out to the young people, right? This season, it was a little challenge for us in terms of how the whole competition with the single pan band, the small band, and into the medium band, it was a little challenge. But because players was going from different bands, some of the players, but unfortunate, Jamas is a small village. Blackrock, from where the band come out of, is a small village, a community that we have home-based players, a lot of home-based players from Blackrock. So that helped us a lot to get through with this panorama this year.
You all have won this competition in 2011 and 2012, and you're the defending champions. How much
Right.
pressure do you all feel heading into the final that you're now set to defend your crown in?
Well, every competition that we go to, like every year from since 2011 to now, the band grew and we keep getting better and better and better. We keep developing younger players from the community. Yes.
Yeah, with us again.
All right.
If I may say quietly, David, Mrs. Ramsey Moore needs to be let in. I think she was bumped off, and she's indicating to me that she's awaiting being allowed back into the system. Yes, Mr. Maxon.
Yeah. So this competition this year, it was much easier. Well, the last 2 years, I have to say it's much easier. The reason for that, our own arranger is from the band, right? Coach Ramsey, he's from the band. He's a born player from Jamas, right? So he grew with most of the players together. So he understands what the band needs to do in a panorama, and I believe that is working for us. Yeah.
How many players do you all have in terms of practicing on a day-to-day basis? I know that there's a limit in terms of minimal limit, maximum limit. Would you have a surplus of players and then you have to try to trim the number of players you have to on final night?
Yes. This year was one of the first years that we really go through that this year. We have to cut down on some of the players or choose the best 90.
And so, good, Mr. Ramsey. And just to follow up on that, because we've been speaking to a lot of band captains, and so who actually would make the decision as to which players in each section are going to perform?
Well, most time the person who is drilling the band. Also, I'm the drill master of the band. I'm the captain of the band and also the drill master. So I am there every day. So I have an idea of who could play, who know the song, who don't know the song, and I go to the arranger as well, and we make a decision.
Yeah, right.
Because
and you probably know.
Yes, I was going to say, and also the arranger is also a member of the band, so he's also involved in the band. It's not just an arranger that go and come. So we all have our input. Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure you actually know who those players are going to be before you get to the point where you have to.
Yes. I know.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, Captain Jamas Steel Orchestra has such an impressive history, so congratulations. I know it can't be easy. It can't be easy. No. If you could share with our listeners, what is it like when you're in a national competition, and this band is from Tobago, and you have to deal with transporting your band to Trinidad. What is it? Could you share with us what those challenges are like?
All right. Some of those challenges Uh, Lawson starting traveling to your vineyard to get on the port in Scarborough, right? You have to, so sometimes in the night, we finish practice like 11, 12, and we start to transport our pan to Scarborough. Sometimes we finish all like 4 o'clock in the morning, right? So that is a challenge. And to get to put them on the boat, so we have to wait on all the vehicles, push them on the boat. That take a while. And a lot of pan racks get damaged to go on the boat because they have a ramp that is very rough. When you go in, you just like bagadang, bagadang, you know, that kind of way. So that's one of the challenge. And thirdly, we lost one night of practice. Why all the rest of band in Trinidad have that practice. So we lost one night of practice. We reaching this Saturday. Like for this competition, we travel the Friday night, reaching this Saturday morning, and then we have to tote all the pans from the port to the savannah. You know, sometime we finish like the boat reaching about, let me say, 6 o'clock in the morning. By the time we finish, could be about 12 o'clock the Saturday around lunchtime. And then we just have a little rest when we go to the hotel and back out by 6 o'clock in the evening. So it's a lot of challenge that the Tobago bands we go through for that for years, many years. We go through that. A lot of hard work. It's not easy with the traveling, but we don't really make that a problem. When we go to Trinidad, we are on one focus. We here for a panorama. We're here to win a competition, and I tell my players that is our focus. Regardless what happens, maintain your focus, and we get the work done.
Right. So when the pans arrive at Port of Spain on the dock, is there a yard or a space that you can go to put your pans before you go to the savannah, or is the band not practicing at all until the competition? And I mean, performing until the competition. Is there a space then that you have available to practice?
Yes. When we leave the port, we go straight to the savannah, find a spot in the savannah, set up the band, and then we come back in the evening and practice. So we just have a time to practice like the Saturday night. We just have to practice the whole night if we feel like. Yeah.
Right. It does sound like a logistical challenge.
Yes, yes.
Mrs. Ramsey Moore, you have a very special function in the band, being manager. From my reading of the history, you've been manager since 2004 to current time. It would have mean that you would have the responsibility of ensuring administratively the band stays functional, and that you keep a certain level of unity and togetherness amongst the players to keep the band active and strong. How much of a challenge is that in terms of managing young persons and keeping the band motivated?
All right. Well, one of the good things that is working for us is the community-based organization. We are like family, groups of families. If you notice, the Ramsey family is a large group in the band. If you check out, we have a lot of Ramseys playing in the band. And then some of my cousins, the Duke side, the Jordan side. So we are sort of very, very close. And so in terms of managing, that is one of the things that works for us. Secondly, as a community band, we have all hands on deck. We have all hands on deck from the various community organizations. But the main challenge really is the financial challenge. How do you get a band, an unsponsored band like Cats and Jammers, always out there without worrying about getting the funding to go forward? And so the most important thing is to have your band well organized as a business organization. I can tell you that when we made the first finals in South, from our prize money, one of the first things that we bought was a truck. Because we are a band that we do a lot of gigs throughout Tobago, and so you must put aside so as to build the business, and then we move from there right into owning our own gift shop and our own food court, our own bar, snack bar, and so that helps us in the downtime. And because I mean, money answereth all things, and a panorama is a very expensive thing, but you cannot build your organization around the panorama. You must have an all-round organization where the focus must also be on human capital development. How do you bring your young people into the space, the young people and their families into the space, so that you can pour into them much more than the music? So I think that is what helps us a lot.
Well, clearly, when we look at your band, its evolution and its development speaks for itself. You all have come a long way from practicing under a mango tree in Aiden Gordon's yard in Black Rock,
Yes.
Tobago.
Correct.
And you said something very significant. Managing a steel band and keeping a steel band viable has a business side to it.
Correct.
Having a sponsor is one thing, and being unsponsored is another. It means to say, for a band to become self-sufficient, there has to be a business model. Right. So
correct.
You all have set a good example for other smaller bands in Tobago, and being the almost like a role model. Do you all, as an entity, Cats and Jammers, serve as a big brother to the smaller orchestras, or try to lend advice, mentor other smaller bands in Tobago, and share ideas, share musical ideas, share business plans, and so on, to sort of build the fraternity within Tobago itself?
Of course, and if you notice, there is a band from Plymouth, Plymouth Bethesda Steel Sensation. We started them off with pans. We would give pans. Sometimes some bands reach out to us and we will give pans. We will help the bands in Tobago. Even a couple of bands, we have some of our players, assisting them in terms of the execution of their music. So yes, Uptown Fascinators was another band that we assisted with instruments and all of that. So yes, we contribute to the development of the steel band community in Tobago, because it's very, very important. And one of the things, when you talk about the Tobago bands, one of the things that would have been a goal for us here in Tobago is the amount of activities that we have to perform in. So it's not just carnival. We also perform during Heritage Festival time, during jazz time, and all the various events. So you have the Panyards very active, very, very active at times, and that has worked for all bands. And so you see a number of Tobago bands are doing extremely well, where Tobago bands dominate the small band. In terms of regions, we have the most bands performing in a small band competition, or even a semi-final, or a semi-final, because the bands are always there in the yard practicing, because they have a number of events to go to. Yeah.
Let's talk about another area, music education. In your capacity as manager, do you encourage your players to learn music formally? So, or rather than, I know in steel band, a lot of the preparation is by rote.
Yeah.
Are you of the view that music education and one being able to read music makes one a better player, or you think that the marriage of both, in terms of learning by rote and music education, it's a balance that the steel bands, and particularly your steel band, has managed to coordinate?
Of course, it's about
music education. Mm-hmm.
So, of course, that is very, very important. And that is why, if you notice where our Curtis Ramsey has reached now, where he started playing from he was about 4 or 5 years old, and then you reached right up into UTT, that today he is one of the upcoming young and promising arrangers. So we encourage that even through the schools, where there is Spanish schools here in Tobago also. So that is very important. But I support the balance of the rote music and as you know, as you go out there as a state side, when you go to play, I mean, for a band like Cats and Jammers, we can play about 40 songs non-stop in a gig. Yeah, we can do that, and all of them is through memory, and which is good as we say to them, our young people. Listen, as long as you could perform on a stage side, remembering all those songs, then you should be able to do well in school. Because how you could remember to go out on a gig and play all those songs, and it's the same way, use the same principle in and apply that to your schoolwork, but music education, that is very important, and we want to encourage all our teachers and all those persons who are out there coming into the yard and teaching our children to read the scores. That is very, very important.
Mrs. Ramsimo, it's a pleasure to speak with you today. And
Sure.
last week we were speaking with your education officer, I think it was Mr. Ash, was that for
Yes.
Yes, and he was telling us about all the programs that Pantrinbago is doing between the panorama to help players, and it was very impressive. So I just want to say that congratulations.
Yes, he's doing a fantastic job.
Now, Kush Ramsey is your arranger, but he's also arranging for Silver Stars, if I remember.
Yes.
So if you could explain to our listeners, how does that work when your arranger is also arranging for another band? So obviously they can't be in your panyard every night. How does it work?
Well, I'm going to be very honest with you. Sometimes we are very antsy because he's arranging for a band in every single category. All right. So he's arranging for a band in every single category. So it's all about time management. Time management and any, because everybody wants the arranger in their band full time, but then we too have to understand that it is a business arrangement for these arrangers. That is the time when they make their money. So we understand that, and so we try to work a proper plan in terms of how many hours you can give to us. All right. And one of the things too is that most of the people in our band are his peers. They all grew up together and they are his peers. And so we have to acclimatize to the style of these young and upcoming arranger. And so even though there are times when we have tension and we are antsy, oh, the arranger, he's somewhere else. But when he comes, I can tell you that the players stay and they dedicate their time and they work with him to ensure that we are at our best. And we have excellent players, because these players have been playing together. Most of them grew up through our training program, and Maxon there, the captain, he is the man who he has trained most of those young people in our band through our pan camps and so on. He is our trainer. He has been doing an excellent job. He's the cog in the wheel for Cats and Jammers. That young man is sitting down on the live there with us. He has trained most of them in that organization, and so being there with Kirsch as their peer, I think whatever he demands of them, they all give 100%. But as management, of course, it is, that we will be tense at times because everybody wants to win. And because everybody wants to win, because you put out a lot of money going into a competition. Panorama is not just going and play. Just the very t-shirts that you have to put on the backs of these players cost you $18,000, $19,000, just for the t-shirts alone. Then your tuner and your arranger, they don't work for pennies. No. It's a lot. And we appreciate all the help coming from government and all those unsponsored bands that receive a grant. But trust me, if you want to win a panorama looking good on stage, delivering with your pants tonal quality, if you don't have $300,000, don't go.
Wow.
Yes, I'm telling you, don't even attempt it, because you're gonna owe bills. And one of the things that we do after every competition, we ensure that we have in our panorama fund account. You must make sure that there is at least 150,000 to start up. If you don't have that to start up, then it does not make sense. So when you see a band on stage, and now it is much more than going to play, it's more of a show. So when you see all these fireworks and all these confetti and all of that, trust me, anytime you see more than 3-4 bursts going up, know that a band is paying close to $15,000 for all of that.
Wow.
No, thank you
Yes,
for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that information with us.
yes.
I don't think most of the general public know all of this.
No, no, no. They see us. And one of the things that they do not even understand, when a band is on stage, take for example a large band. When a large band is on stage, trust me, it is close to $2 million worth of instruments. Close
Right.
to $2 million worth. A good tenor pan is for about $8,000. And you think if you're playing with about 25 tenors. When you go to purchase a double guitar, it's $8,000. Well, it must be. Well, it probably has increased. When you look at a 9 bass drum, one set of 9 bass, is $9,000. Yeah. And pan is not just about the players, it is an entire industry. So whenever there is panorama, the downstream industries, they all benefit. And a lot of people, from the truckers to the food providers, to the person who is going to the graphic designer, all these people, the man who is welding, it's just people think, oh, they just like money and this and that. But when you think about a band and the amount of people that you have to employ during that period, it's a contribution down to the person coming to sweep in the panyard and to cut the panyard and to do all of that. And you're creating employment for a number of people. And so it's an entire industry. People just focus on the band on stage and so on. But you just think about from the month of November right into Carnival, which is January, February, the amount of lives that we would have touched. And then when we finish now, the players get paid. Not just the $500 that the government is giving. In our band, every single rounds is $1,000. So you just think about it. First round, 90 players, that's $90,000. Second round, 90 players, and next $90,000. And you make the finals, is the next $90,000. That is what it is. That is what it is for a band, and a premium band, a band that is out there and working. So you don't just run into these competitions just like that. It costs a lot. We put out a lot. Our players are happy. The welder is happy. The tuner is happy. The arranger is happy. The graphic designer is happy. The truckers are happy. Everybody benefits. So that is why I'm saying, if you don't have 300,000 and then your prize money, you're out. And we like what we are doing, and so we will continue to do it. But we just want the nation to understand it's not a bunch of people that are making old noise. No, we are making music, and there's an industry where a number of persons benefit financially to help their families. And so when we have players running from band to band, we have taken out a rule, and I mean, I didn't want to put on my Pancho and Bigo president cap, but we have taken out that rule because we say if that is your talent and that is your skill, and it is the only time of the year that you are employed, then why should I deny you the opportunity to make money?
I'm so glad you raised that point because, that's something that we have discussed with certain bands. And I share your view. If we're to develop the panman as a professional, this is the
Correct.
season where he or she's going to make some money. How could we deny them and say you can't play with anybody else? So
That's right.
I'm very happy that you said that. And in a way, the fact that these people are in demand by several bands means it's only going to push the industry forward faster.
Correct, because they are musicians. They are musicians. We have left it up to the band leader. It is up to you as a
Right.
band leader. If you want to hire somebody to come into your band to perform, and if they're skating, then you know what to do. You put them to play by themselves, as Maxim will normally do. You play by yourself, and if you can't deliver my song, then go. And I think, but it is what it is. It is a serious business that we undergo. as preparing for these festivals, and it takes a lot, their time, invaluable contribution. You are in these Spaniards from 6 in the evening, sometimes until 2 in the morning, and nobody compensates anybody for doing that. You're just giving of your time and of your talent and service as we use our Panyard as safe and sacred spaces for these young people to come to let out their energies, using music as a tool for positive social development.
Maxon, you as captain of the band, walk us through the process of that you all engage in choosing a song and tune of choice for the season. This year you're playing Rocket by Dennis Williams, also called The Merchant. What would have been the influences? Is it that Mrs. Ramsey Moore would have been coming to you and saying, listen, this is what I want and this is what you have to do? Is it a collaborative effort? Does the band have a say? Does the arranger have a say? Or is it that everyone, there's a democratic process? Sometimes, for the listening public out there, nobody knows how a band gets to that point where they choose a song and they execute the song.
Get the phone not to shut off. Keep out in. I don't touch it every minute.
Maxon.
Right. Yes. Well, I will go a little back. Right. Normally, from since 2011 at 2000 at Window Panorama, we started off with Edwin Pushup. Right. The arranger, he used to come in the band with his song because he used to write his own song. So he arranged it for the band. So he would say, here, I'm writing this song for the band to do. Right? So we go with the arranger song. Right? And after that, change when we have different arrangers. Now normally the band come together, come in the Panyard, everybody have this song, what song, and we have a nice box and we play the song. Right? So it's all about the members of the stage side. Not everybody that playing in Panorama. There's the members of the band, and we sit down and listen to the song. And which one that give us the vibes, we choose. Right? Sometimes we talk to the arranger because the arranger have an input as well. Because he's doing the song for the band. So at the end of the day, the band could choose a song and the arranger cannot deliver. So the arranger input is very important, choosing a song as well. Right? But this song for this Panorama, Rocket, the arranger called me. He said, but I want to do this song for the band. Right? Call the manager, which is, you want to do this song for the band. And I was like, but we think about the DNA. That song was rocking. Everybody liked this song. And he was, no, I prefer to do this song. I have this song inside. And the players and the manager and all of us, we say, okay, we're going with this song, Rocket. And for today, we are on top with the song. So that is very important when the arranger have an input in whatever you're choosing a song. That is very important to the band because he's the main person that has to do the music. Right? So that's one of the. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Could we follow up? I want to ask you a question about the form of the arrangement. So I'm purposely not asking Mrs. Ramsey more about this, but you as the captain of the band, what is your view about the prescribed structure of the typical Panorama piece? So as we know, it's expected you lay down the verse and the chorus, then there's a whole development section, and then some kind of a recapitulation. What are your thoughts about maybe not restricting it to that traditional form so that the arrangers themselves have some more freedom to choose some other kind of form, or maybe a hybrid form between what we call this sonata development form in classical music, the exposition, development, recapitulation, and some other kind of structure? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, all right, it's like this. The Panorama whole structure is like here. You do an introduction, After the introduction, we do verse and chorus. After a pass verse and chorus, we go into a bridge. It's a little thing into a bridge, leading up to go into the verse solo, meaning like the background bands will start to take over to play the melody of the song, giving the tenors chance to do what they have to do, right? And then you have a little minor that you go down into a jam or whatever. But it is you don't have a rule. You could change it up as an arranger, right? You don't have to go down the way after verse and chorus. You could do anything that you want to do as an arranger. If you feel to go into a Latin right there, so it's all about the arranger ideas to deliver the music. But everybody believe this is the structure that we have to go. Basic structure, verse, chorus, that's just how it goes for Panorama. But then the arranger could change up his style and do it, how you want. Yeah.
Mrs. Ramsey Moore, what emphasis you as manager place on during the band's performance or leading into the performance, that theatric aspect of a band's performance? We understand the music, we understand the logic behind the arranger's choice of song. What value as manager you assign to marrying the theatrics with the music? Do you see that as something I recently had a conversation, and we had spoken with Duvon Stewart before, and he had indicated that he sees theater and music as going hand in hand. He's seeing that he is of the view that the music could be expressed through theater also. So he's seeing Panorama as not just playing of music, but introducing that aspect of theater. You mentioned Maxon mentioned Mr. Pouchet. He would have been his brother would have been the one who coined that people come to see Panorama, not necessarily
Correct.
hear Panorama.
Correct. So even before all this theater that you're seeing now, we were doing it with Edwin Pouchet's music, and Silver Stars was also doing it. People probably held on to it when Duvon started to do it in a big way. But Edwin Pouchet, for me, is one of the first persons who introduced. I remember when they did Battle Zone, when those guys they were all dressed up and they came on stage, and all of that. So Edwin Pouchet, and through that we started introducing, even with Wake Up and all of that. But Panorama has evolved. It has evolved now, and a lot of the bands are introducing a lot of theater. And for us in Tobago, we are very folky. We in terms of the culture, we like drama and acting and all those folk songs and all of that. So for us, Duvon has that spirit, and it is the same thing with Kirsch, and people may not know it, but when Kirsch came out of UTT and the band from Tobago East, Eastside New Dimension, was looking for an arranger, and they called Duvon because they were trying to get Duvon to arrange. Duvon is the one who sent Kirsch to them. Duvon is the one who sent Kirsch to Eastside, even before Captain Jammers took him as an arranger. And he proved himself, and then we call our homeboy because we didn't want anybody else to go and grab him before. And the first song he arranged for us, we won. It was last year, and now we're poised again to win. And when you look at his style in terms of when he's on stage, and he's so captivated because Kirsch is not just a panis, Kirsch is also very good on the African drums. Kirsch is also a calypsonian going to school. Kirsch was singing soca when he was little, junior soca monarch. He participated in that in Trinidad. He can also do folk dancing and folk singing and all of that in Black Rock folk performers. So he is an all-round package. And even in his music, in his deliveries, when he's arranging, you could definitely feel that Tobago folk culture in his music. Same thing with Duvon Stewart. Same thing with Duvon, and that is what is standing out for them. So Panorama, of course, as I said before, when you look at Massey Trinidad All Stars, they know how to shut down a show on you. They know so you have to, as a manager, you have to strategize. So one, you have to be able to, just before we go on stage, I inspire our players. We pray together, I give them that speech, and then you look at your lineup and you have to know, hey, I'm coming after this band or I'm going before this band. So you must know, besides the music, what else you can do. I remember for last Panorama going into Tobago medium band final, when a certain band was finished playing, I had to get up from where I was and go find my band to change our strategy, because change our strategy. So you have to be able to strategize, because if you know you're coming after a certain band and that band would have done a wonderful job and the crowd went up and they said, Lord have mercy, you have to be able on the spot to come with something else that you can't change the music, but in terms of how you're going to put on the theatrics, then you have to be able to on spot. So eventually I said, Kirsch, listen, what's going on? Here we're going on. We see what we plan to do. A band just did it. So you can't do that. So these are the words of the song. You have to go on singing the verse and chorus. And I know that he can sing. So immediately now, the entire plan at the top was changed, and then obviously when he started to sing and pretend that he was Baron and giving all the nice Baron crooning and so on, obviously, the crowd will love it and they went for it. So as manager, you're responsible to ensure the look of the band on stage. They must look good. It must feel good. They build the players' confidence. Also, you have to be able to strategize according to what number you pull. If you are number one, you know that you have to put on the performance of your life so that the judges will remember even when they're marking the other scores. So it's all about strategy and, of course, your excellent music.
As you talk about performance sequence, when the various bands pull for a position, do you have any views about whether it's more advantageous to go first or to go near the end rather than in the middle? What are your thoughts about that?
It does not matter, because bands play first and they've won a competition. So it does not matter. You just have to know, if you're going first, the strategy has to be totally different. If you are going first, if you are in the middle, you have to look at the bands who is going before you and after you. For Pan in the 21st century, this is something that I always, it's amazing when I look back at it and have a good laugh. Pan in the 21st century, you had two bands. The first band and the two bands tied for first going right, the preliminaries and the semis, or the preliminaries onto the finals. So here it is, you had, I think it was Captain Jammers and Cuba Joylanders. We were tied in the preliminary round. So we're going into the finals now. And the band that was third place, which was, I think it was Supernovas. So Captain Jammers was playing, Supernovas is playing, no, Captain Jammers is playing like 8th, Supernovas is 9th, and then Cuba Joylanders is coming 10th. Amrit Samaru put down a piece of strategy and knocked both bands out of the park. So we were first. Amrit came on with this song. We didn't know this song. Grenade by Bruno Mars. And Amrit blew Captain Jammers out of the park with Grenade, with all the antics. And of course, the band was coming after him, which was the next band that was tied for second or tied for first. They could not recover. They could not recover. So it's all about how you strategize. If you're first place, you know that you have to put all into it so that the judges will remember you. They will remember your performance. And so it does not matter where you play. You just have to look at the lineup and strategize.
Thank you for sharing all that information. It's very interesting. So,
Yes.
Mr. Ramsey, you mentioned earlier that you have a lot of young players that you mentor and bring up through the ranks in the band. Could you tell us the age range of the players in the Cats and Jammers? And roughly how many players in each section of the band? Mr. Ramsey?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I started with the young players, with the players in the band, right? The young players from at least some of from 5 years, right? And I bring them up a bunch of young players, could be about close to 30, right? And up to this day, we have that bunch of players. So them grow together, stage to stage, stage to stage. So the band is getting better and better and better with those players. Actually, in my tenor line, we go to this competition with about close to 21 tenors, right? And within that players, we have home-based players are close. We have all our home-based players about, you could say about 18 players.
Okay, Maxwell, I don't think we should say how much players we have in our tenor line and these things. Don't talk that. We don't want nobody to know our strength. So don't say numbers.
Right? And that's how it goes. So, no, but basically we have most of our players from the village. So that's made the band strong and successful to where we are for today. You know?
A question that I'm sure you could answer. What sort of pressure do you feel in terms of balancing the band? I know that each band is responsible for balancing the orchestra, the orchestral part of it. In terms of your tenors, double tenors, seconds, tenor bass, and so on. I'm not asking you to say what your armory is like, but simply balancing of a band is important because that affects the sound of the band and the balancing.
Yes.
Because people are paying to attend the show. When they get to your venue, what they hear is important to you as the captain and as the with the musicians behind the band. How does a band, in your case, Cats and Jammers, with a song like Rocket, how do you go about balancing the orchestra for this particular piece?
Well, normally we set up the band, we set up the band and then the arranger and I will go in front of the band pretending to be judges, right?
Yeah.
And we listen to the band to get the balance. So we go say, nah, on the right side, we have too much bass on the right side. So we have to switch it up, right? We have too much tenors in the back. We could bring up some, so it's a balance. And we just shift it around till we have the correct song that we need. So it's all about a different panyard. You have different song in different panyard. So sometimes you could be in your panyard and you have a very good song. And when you go, like in the savannah, it's a different song. So that is important as well to know how to arrange the band, in different places, right? Like for the stadium, and it all depends on the breeze. You listen to the breeze, how the breeze blow. So that is very important. So you're gonna know here, you have to put this more in the back, this line in, bring up this, bring up that, to get a complete package for the judge, because it's all about the music go to the judge. Them is the main person that you have to please. Not about friends and who said this and who said that. It's all about pleasing the judges. So with experience that I have, and also the manager of the band, because she could judge a panorama as well. She's very good at that. The time that she did, I believe she could judge a panorama and even do better than some of the judges. But so when she gave me the okay, I say, yes, you're good. Tell yourself that you're good. So that's the main thing about setting up a band for competition. Yeah.
Mrs. Ramsey Moore, what we've noticed is, and maybe I'm asking you to draw on your experience as the head of Pantry and Bago here. You could correct me if it is I'm overstepping. I have no issue with that. But in keeping with what Maxon just said, are you of the view that a band may have an understanding of itself if it is when they play in its yard where it's more like an amphitheater feel, as opposed to when it plays in the open space. So the band may sound different. So when you judge a band in the preliminary round in its space, and then you hear it at the semi-final round in the savannah, a band may not properly, and this is where you can correct me. I mean, a band may have an understanding of itself in the yard, but that's different from how its understanding of itself in the savannah. So you may song a certain way in one place and another place in an open space. How do you measure your band in terms of equipping it or preparing the band to deal with with two different venues like that?
Right. So that is a very important function of management. You know, over the years, you're in a space, you surrounded by walls because you might be in a little village, a lot of houses around and so on. You must find some time to take a band out of that space because you know when you are going to the savannah, it's an open space, so you want to know how your band will sound if you get out there. So that's a function. Don't just stay behind those walls, that small space in the panyard. And if you notice, a lot of bands when they go out there in the savannah, in your yard, you're bad. In Pan, we say when you're in your yard, you're bad. But when you're on the level playing field, sometimes some bands sounding so light and all of that. So it's a strategy that you have to ensure. For example, for us, we play outside. We are outside. We have no walls. We have nothing surrounding us. So that helps us a lot. So you're able to know how your band will sound, and it helps the arranger and the drill master. Maxon is also the drill master, captain drill master. So it helps them in terms of how you will set up your band, and that works good for us. But as long as you're playing in an enclosed area behind with a lot of walls or houses surrounding you, you need to find some space in your community, even if it is one night or two nights just before the competition, to go out and practice.
I would imagine it also is extremely beneficial to the players themselves to experience what it is like when you're playing in a different environment. So to
Correct.
prepare, yeah, very
Correct.
interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Moore, let me just poke a question at the band. Cats and Jammers, they play very well. They've been champions. They are very comfortable in their medium category. Is there any thoughts or anything on the drawing board for the band becoming a large band in the future?
You know, when we re-entered competition in 2003, I think it was, because Captain Dama stayed out of competition for 17 years. So when we re-entered the competition, we went large. We were in a large band category, which was a bad decision that we made. And then we were advised, but it was not a good decision. So we eventually went back in the medium. I think we are ready for anything. Yes, we can, but you know the players are saying it. The players are saying it. You know, after one more year in the medium, and then we are going up in the large. I don't know if we are going to take the bait, but it's not impossible because we believe that at present we could really give some large bands some good competition.
Quite agree. Thank you.
Yeah.
Quite often, a band, it has been said that when bands get when the judges makes his comments, you know, the band tends to be guided by those comments. Maxon, maybe you can answer. Do you feel hamstrung? Do you feel tied to the comments so much so that you have to implement changes in your music that affects what you prepare the band for through the season? How do you deal with the judges' comments? Particularly that you're going into a final now. I mean, I know that you're ahead in terms of your medium band position at the semi-final. is it that you hold on to your winning formula, or you're still implementing changes or executing changes and guided by the judges' comments? Do you feel that the judges' comments are it tends to be something that affects the band's performance?
No. I would not say that. Now we pay close attention to the judges' comments because it's like this. Hey, if you judges give you homework to do and you do your homework, they will say, "Nah, you're not listening to me, right? You're not listening to me." So I believe you will mark it hard. But if you give me comment, hey, you need to polish up on this part. You need to be a little cleaner on this part. Then I pay close attention to that. I try to work on that part. Try to make it so the next time you hear me, because the judge will listening out for that part, you know. So you have to try your best to please the judges. At the end of the day, you have to please the judges, right? So going up to these finals, semi-finals, I watch on the score sheet, you know, so you know what you have to work with. Always pay attention to the score sheet, the remarks. Some judge sometimes will tell you one thing, and our next judge will tell you our next thing, and that will sometimes just confuse you a lot.
Correct.
Okay, one is four judges. One might tell you, hey, this part wasn't clean, and the next judge might tell you, this part was good. So you have to know, you have to
Correct.
know how to go about this thing, who to please, what to do. So you cannot get confused. You just know you have to work on all the parts. Make sure you have it clean to your best, and just leave it up to the judges on the finals. Yeah.
Do you find that most of the time when you get comments from the judges, you already know the things that the band has to work on?
Yes, truth. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so it's most of it probably doesn't come as a surprise at all.
That's correct.
Yeah.
You know, and then you have to know which one to go with and which one to leave and which one. Sometimes if you try to please everybody, you end up in problems.
You end
You
up
know?
pleasing no one.
You know, but that's how it is.
Remind us again about the age range of the players in the band. From what age to what age? You said players as young
Well,
as 5.
yes, that is how I start them off. But the youngest player in our band now is about 13 years. Right?
13.
And 13 years, yeah. And we go right up. The oldest in the band could be around in his late 60s, you know. But it's a lot of young people, more young people than old people. Our band is more youth in our band. So if you watch the front line, the tenor line, young people. That's one thing in Tobago. Tobago have a lot of young people playing pan. For instance, like in Trinidad, in Crep Susando's band, I actually see a guy on a stool and he playing, an old guy on a stool playing. And I said, wow. In Trinidad, they're going right down to the lie down with pan in Trinidad. Right down. But in Tobago, there's a lot of youth. There's a lot of youth. When you reach certain age in Tobago, they tell yourself, I give up, I finish with that. So you always have to keep teaching the young people to bring it up to keep your band going in Tobago. Yeah.
And thank you. And
Yeah,
so, I have to say congratulations to you, because it sounds like it's not only just preparing for Panorama or performances here and there, it's really actually a big social development program.
Yes. Soon as Panorama finish, we back on the market, practice, because we got to keep going, developing more players for the next year.
We want to thank you, Maxon Ramsey and manager Mrs. Beverly Ramsey Moore, for making yourself available to us this afternoon. We thank you so much for your presence and for the information and the content. I'm sure the public would have been enlightened, and we would have been enlightened. Thank you so much for joining us. And Mrs. Ramsey Moore, we look forward to you accepting an invitation under a different hat in the future. We'd love to have you again.
Yes,
Of course, no problem at all.
I does that very much.
I'd love to be there.
Best wishes to the band moving forward into the final, and thank you so much for all that you've been doing for PAN, Mrs. Ramsey Moore.
Thank you so much, and good evening to your listeners and your viewers.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Ramsey Moore.
Okay, good.
Miss Joseph, Natasha Joseph. I'm seeing our guest from phase two here. Good afternoon, Miss Joseph. Thank you so much for blessing us with your presence. For the listening public, Natasha Joseph is, and you can correct me, Natasha, is she's the drill master for phase two Pan Groove. She is also heavily involved in terms of the production of the music at phase two Pan Groove. I must say that I attend the practice sessions regularly. I don't want to say I'm just a fan, but I'm a fan of steel band music. And your yard is so easy on the eye and so comfortable that I look forward to being there. I see we have a certain gentleman, Mr. Terry Bernard, joining us. Mr. Bernard, thank you for making Miss Joseph available to us this afternoon. It's a pleasure to welcome Phase 2 Pan Groove to our space. So tell us something. How has the preparation been going? I have Dr. Richard Tangyok, musicologist, with me. So he would have some pointed questions for Miss Joseph. But Terry, tell us how your preparations have been going. I know that today sponsors day, if we may put it that way, and you have a very active yard. So thank you for taking the time to steal some time away from that and to share with the public what's happening at Phase 2's Pan Groove. How's the preparation going?
First of all, good afternoon, Fareed. Good afternoon to your host. And good afternoon, Tasha. Good afternoon to all your listeners locally and internationally. To answer your question, it's been pretty hectic. This being a short season, the short seasons are always hectic and to the point. So it's quite a lot of work. However, we enjoy doing it. It's intense, it's grueling, but we enjoy doing it.
The history of Phase 2 Pan Groove, it's very steeped in tradition. And your pedigree and performance levels speaks for itself. If we just simply look at 7 Panorama titles, large band, 13 second place, 6 third place. That's a serious amount of firepower. In 26 Panorama competitions, you all have been right up there in the top 3. That speaks volumes. Natasha, how is it? How have you been coping with long hours, drilling the band, preparing the band? I have been there, and I often say to Terry that I don't have any musical experience, but your drilling is so intense. I begin to feel like I know the song by now.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone. What I could say is that the hours are always long, and like Terry said, it is a short season, so everything is compressed. And we do feel it at the moment. I'm very sure that we are all still trying to recuperate from last week and also Sunday's performance. Um, but we do it because we know, well, there's no other time to do it in. So we make the necessary sacrifices.
Natasha, it's great to see you again. Good
Good to
afternoon.
see you too, Mr. Tangyuk.
And those players that you tutored for me a year ago, they're still talking about that four-stick playing technique. Huh? I hope they're practicing.
I hope they are practicing as well.
So I have a question about this. So this year there's about a 2-week gap between the semis and the finals. What are your thoughts about? Is it too much time, or are you appreciative of having that 2-week period?
I am very appreciative of having that 2-week period. Because it gives us a chance to really focus a little longer on the difficult areas.
Yeah. Do
You
you
know, so
find? Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, no, I was just gonna say, most of the kind of competitions like this is a cumulative process. So as much as we need music, we also need time for the muscle memory and so on to build.
Do you find generally that players in phase two would, sort of be more committed to it when there's a shorter rehearsal? Let's say there were only 8 days between semis and finals. Do you find that the players would be more committed, or it doesn't really make a difference?
To be very honest, I haven't really noticed uh in that respect like a difference in time. I think the players are very eager to make sure that they have what they have, that they understand the music. So they usually there before practice and sometimes even after. But I mean sometimes we finish too late. So they won't be there after the late. What if we finish early enough? Sometimes they stay back trying to get things.
Right. Now, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked one of our guests from the previous hour. And I think this question is particularly relevant to phase two. And this has to do with the form of the arrangement for Panorama. Because as we know from the score sheet, there are certain expectations as a prescribed kind of structure. There's the introduction, you state the verse and the chorus, what we call, as you know, we call it the exposition, and then
Yes.
you have your bridge, and then you go into your development where the arranger is free to do what they want with manipulation of melody, harmony, and rhythm, and so. And then it's expected in the traditional panorama arrangement that there be a recapitulation. But what are your thoughts? So I understand this is kind of a general formula.
Yes.
How do you feel about the panorama not being quite so restrictive in terms of the structure of the piece, so that it gives the arranger more latitude in terms of the form of the piece? Because with somebody like Boogsy, there's 1,000 ideas coming at you at the same time, right? I mean, he
Precisely.
has more ideas per 10 measures than anybody else, right?
To be very honest with you, I think in recent times, naturally, most arrangers are veering away from that traditional form and structure of arranging. So some of them might still recapitulate, but a lot of times it don't really happen. Um, and I think it should be free because we are creating something out of something else. Right? So once you have the main statement, verse and chorus, and development of the motives, um, and the melody. After that, I think we should really leave it up to the arrangers to see, you know, what other creative things they want to share with us, because there are so many devices that we could employ, and as I say, a lot of us are veering towards not so much a traditional format.
Right. I'm happy to hear that, because I think we kind of limit the creativity of the arranger if they
Very
have to
much so.
come to a particular structure. But of course, the criteria in the judging sort of lays out this expectation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the criteria for the judging, there's no rubric for recapitulation. So we just kind of get away there. What they have in the rubric is general arrangement, reharmonization, motivic and melodic development, and interpretation, tone and rhythm. So, in that respect, the recapitulation is a kind of a unspoken expectation, but not really anything that is documented that you could get marked for or not.
I see. Okay. Thank you so much for explaining that.
You're welcome.
It's public information that Dr. Sharp is gifted so much so that a lot of what we hear from phase two and his arrangement is something that comes from within him. Let me say that another way. You clearly are music literate, and you understand. You can read score, you can read music, and so on. How is it for you working with Dr. Sharp, trying to communicate to players his musical ideas? Is it difficult? Did you all establish a certain or develop a chemistry where when he communicates to you what he wants the band to sound like? How do you go about doing that? That's something that escapes illiterate persons like myself. I don't understand music, but I am marveled by the fact that
I
a
think
band can execute what's in another mind.
Between the both of us, we have a particular type of synergy. I can't even really tell you how or when it was developed, but I have been playing with Phase 2 since 1998, off and on. And then I worked with him as a drill mistress from 2007 all the way, well, till present. Was with Carib Dixieland and so on. So I guess over the years, um, I have, you know, just been able to anticipate his ideas much more easily, and it's not difficult to transfer to the players. That's the easy part. I would say.
Sorry, you can go ahead.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
What I was thinking is, how many of your players, what percentage of your players are music literate? Can read a score, can read music? And how much emphasis do you all place at Phase 2 Fan Groove on music literacy?
Of the panorama side, I'm not sure. I would say maybe 20% of the players are music literate. It could be more than that.
Okay.
In terms of Phase 2's music literacy program, I know that we have a junior academy, and they do both music theory and steel pan. But maybe Terry could expound more on that, because I'm not there during the year. I am a road person, just like the next road person.
That is not true. That is so not true.
I have a question for either of you. So Phase 2 is obviously one of the most prominent bands in the nation and has a wonderful track record at Panorama. Is it an advantage or a disadvantage? Because then when you go to play at Panorama, there's a certain expectation, as they say, you're a big band. There's a few bands in the country that everybody expects one of these bands is going to place in the top 3. How do you feel? How do either of you feel about that?
That's you want me to go?
No, but I would just say my little piece, just because I'm on at the moment. To be very honest with you, I especially prelims to semis, I don't really focus on placement. I focus on us doing what we need to do to ensure that when we come out for final night, our success is unquestionable. Yeah, that's my main focus there. So I don't really give in to whatever pressures anybody else might be feeling, or even take on what the outside world is saying. I reference what the judges looking for, and we try our best to make that happen.
Let me just get in a little question here, based on where the conversation is going now. Bugsy, I respect him as the Mozart of steel pan in Trinidad and Tobago, and he has done his own selection on most occasions. How effective is that to execute when it comes to like panorama? Because a lot of times the complaint is that the song that he wrote for the band would not be given the kind of airplay and the kind of expose so that people can familiarize themselves with the song. But how difficult it is, what kind of pressure is that on like you, the drill master, to ensure that the players enjoy executing that particular selection that he wrote for Panorama?
Well, again, this for me that's easy because all the players love Bugsy music. So we are happy to play any composition that he comes with, and we we actually listen to it quite a lot in the Panyard. So we are very familiar with it. Um, I wanted to say something else about what you know. Most people believe that doing a popular song that everyone could relate to is the key to success. But I mean, if you look at our wins, I'm pretty sure of those 7 wins, they were mostly original, if not all original compositions.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
I would also add to that that I think if you play an original piece, an original composition, the composer can design it already with the arrangement in mind. So you design a melody that will lend itself to 15 different variations or developments. So I think it's actually a very good strategy if you're a good composer, as he is. So
Yes, it gives
I
you an advantage in terms of what you want to do with your development and so on.
When I
let,
look at the band, when I look at the band, and we look at the amount of players you all have practicing from season into season, not just this year, how do you go about um, trimming your numbers to fit the category? Because I would imagine you would have Terry Bernard may play in the prelims all the way into the final, but there may be players who may play in the prelims who may not get play in the semis, or may play in the prelims and semis and not play in the final. How does a band, and in your band, how do you all go about asking a player or getting a player to understand that you may not be playing through and through the season? Either
I
one of
think
you all can answer.
I think
Terry seems to be
finals
hiding behind.
finals is probably the most difficult in terms of having to make that decision. But outside of that, um, some of the players in phase 2, they actually some of them would only play for prelims of their own decision. Some of them would play for prelims and semis of their own decision. Like I said, the band is always oversized. So when it comes to cutting down the people who are left, is never an easy decision. Sometimes people understand, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes we, as the I would say the administrative players, sometimes we take a back seat to allow folks to play.
Terry, how difficult it is, or what degree of difficulty exists in terms of you being captain of the band and working with a maverick like Dr. Sharp? Is it an easy functional relationship, or it's a challenge in terms of you understanding what he wants from the band and what he expects, because you're basically the person on the ground, working with the players one on one. How do you develop that chemistry with someone like Dr. Sharp?
First of all, it's as Tash said, you don't know when the chemistry start or when the bond start, but you have that. You just have a knack for understanding what he wants, and you convey that to the players. Try as best as possible to understand and get them to understand what he wants, and it works it's a challenge at times because he has so many ideas and so many things coming in his head. Sometimes he does parts, and somebody players say, I wonder if you'll change that. And uh, they may not approach it with the accuracy and the aggression that they need because they feel it may change. Sometimes it changes them, other times not. But it's always a little challenge, but it's fun. It's challenging, fun working with him. It's it's almost like a movie at times, you know. If one could come and analyze how we work, and especially like now as well. Just we as players stand, sit, practice in awe, just looking at how he and Natasha work together. It's a discussion we have almost every night. Sometimes we have an idea and he put it to us. We may not understand it as good as he wants us to. And stuff like the big mother, the great pacifier will come, listen, this is what he wants. This, he will, and she will call note for note. And we stand there and I don't know, they just have a natural synergy. And we as the players have that synergy with them as well too.
Mr. Bernard, how much of the arrangement is actually completed before the band starts practicing for Panorama?
Sir, zero. Zero arrangement is completed before we start practicing. We don't, if he, well, most time he'll have it in his head and he will come and put down the verse and chorus and he'll come and just start to work. That's how it's done.
It's an ongoing process.
So, Natasha, you're always in the hot seat then as a drill master because you're not sure as you're going to the panyard. What are we drilling tonight?
No, correct.
Something like that. Something like that. Until
is that.
the piece is finished.
Right.
And then even then, sometimes you're still not sure because I might come in the panyard and say, well, okay, I'm going to take this section of music and we're going to focus on X, Y, and Z. And in the process of focusing on X, Y, and Z, he hears something all the way up in G. And you know, we put X, Y, and Z on pause and focus on G a little bit.
Right. So the plan is constantly in flux. The rehearsal.
Yes, it's a very fluid process. You know, it has its own organisms.
Right. So I know a lot of bands, a lot of arrangers will make changes as they go, as the band is learning it. But I think in phase 2, from what I understand, it's even more so. So that speaks to the skill level of the players that you're going to learn this. And then tomorrow night it's going to be changed. And then the night after that is going to be changed. And if somebody missed that rehearsal, they have to catch up.
Yeah.
Yes. If I may say, there was one particularly, we did almost 4, you could say 4 Panorama songs, you know, Mr. Tangyok and Mr. Ali. In terms of music, you know, he just does different things.
You mean to play 4 different songs for the Panorama and then decide what you're going to play?
No. During the course of the competition, we would have made changes that could have done 4 Panorama songs.
Yeah, in terms of the volume of music
in terms of the volume of work that we would have done.
Right.
And parts that we would have learned and disposed of, dispensed with.
And since the time limit is about 8 minutes roughly, do you often have to say, let's run the whole thing and see how it will time out, and then, okay, we need to edit something here?
That happens most times. Most times we'll have more music than we want, and he will just choose what he wants to use that will get us within the time.
Allow me to ask this, Dr. Tangyok. I sit in the bleachers for Panorama. I would sit there and I would listen to what I'm hearing. Now, I'm premising this comment and my question purely on the basis of I don't understand what you all understand. I am a pan lover, but I can't read music and I can't perform. I can't do what you all do. So I'm the lay person who sits there. I often leave the panorama here and people say, this band song nice, the band song sweet, my band get robbed. And I wonder, what is the criteria in these people's minds? Walk me through this. We are seeing theatrics being married into the music now in Panorama. We hear players, the arranger, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the arranger is responsible for that. The arranger or the arrangement involves band participation, meaning players singing a chorus, singing a line. It seems to be, in my humble view, a new development over the past few years, where we are marrying theater, music, and choral work, if I may put it like the band singing. What is your view in terms of that shift or that development? Is it something that enhances the band's performance, or is it something that you think should be more? It should be something that should feature more on the score sheets in terms of awarding of points and so on. Either one of you all could lend your voice to.
Well, I think it's just a natural part of the performance. I mean, if you're really enjoying something, you would naturally want to sing that part. And yes, arrangers have been including the singing, but it's definitely not a necessity. Like you could win a panorama without singing a word, you know. And the theatrics and all of that, it makes a great show, but as we know, there's no rubric for the theatrics. Um, so even after all the theatrics and a band didn't do favorably, they might say they get robbed, but you know, is really up to the judges. So it's a little subjective in terms of the points that you do get, and some people would say, well, the theatrics help to to make to help the judges make a decision on how much points they get for things like interpretation and spirit of carnival, etc. um but there's no rubric for that. So if we just go in with the paper, then it's not a necessary part of the performance, but to me it's part of the expression. So I am all for it.
It looks good.
When the season is over, when it is, do the judges or does Pancho Bago have seminars with you all with regard to an assessment of how they feel the panorama was executed in terms of the band's performances, in terms of you all have a say in terms of we don't like what you all are doing, we want you all to address us in relation to the preparation of the score sheet, or in terms of what you all expect of. In other words, you all have an input into the judging criteria. Are these to lend your voice for clarity in terms of what does the judges expect of a band? Does that sort of seminar exist, or you all just come year in year out, and there is no communication or integration between Pancho Bago's criteria for judging and the bands being informed?
I think there was or there were programs during the year for judges to explain what they look for and what they expect bands and arrangers to do. And I don't know if they had any this year gone, but those were conversations and things that they had in the past.
So the conversations are between Pantrin Bago, or the workshops, Pantrin Bago and the judges or potential judges. But what about with the arrangers? What about the pan fraternity? Are there conversations?
I've never really heard of any, but I've been to the judges, the one for the judges and potential judges.
Right.
But
When it be,
sorry.
wouldn't it be good to include I think it actually, I mean, the judges will judge according to the criteria that is put down for them. So I would think it's more important for Antrim Bago to have conversations with the arrangers, with the drill masters, with panmen, players, who have a lot of experience with this, and ask them what do they think, and let them come to a consensus as to what the criteria should actually be. Maybe that would create less discontent when the results are announced. If all the stakeholders have a say and agree upon this is the criteria, because, well, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but when I look at the most recent panorama score sheet, I think some of the categories, it's a little bit vague, or let me express it a different way. One judge may interpret that criteria in a certain way, and another person on the panel will interpret those instructions a different way. And I would imagine that creates a problem in the judging, because not everybody understands. Let's take, for example, um, so there are 40 marks for arrangement. Then there's the next category, I think it's interpretation. And under interpret, or what is the name of the second category, Mr.
General
McIntyre?
general performance.
Yes, on the general performance, it's 40 marks. And within general performance, there are marks for interpretation. So, for example, just using that as an example, my understanding of interpretation within this context of panorama is the arrangement. Once the arranger has put the song down, that is the interpretation of the song. But maybe another judge might consider interpretation in that category to mean the execution of the piece. So I just wondered if you all had any thoughts about that.
Well, I think to me that's what makes it subjective, because exactly what you are saying. If the players don't execute the arranger's intent, then it might seem as though his or their interpretation is lacking, which could also lead to less points. But it depends on the perspective of the listener, which in being the judge.
Right. So, okay, so you talked about subjectivity. We'll come back to that in a second. So, I would say, for me, if I were judging, execution has nothing to do with arrangement. The arrangement is the arrangement. And what I'm hearing, if I love the arrangement, I'm giving it full marks. Right? If I deduct a mark, I have to give a comment why it wasn't a perfect score. Right? You can't deduct
I
marks in my
agree.
without giving critical feedback, hopefully constructive criticism as to what you thought was
Y-
not perfect,
Yes, exactly. What was the reason I lost 4 or 5 points
or
out
even
of a
two,
total score?
or even 2 marks. Now, because
Yes.
2 marks can make a big difference,
Oh, it
in
does.
right. So now let's talk about subjectivity. So my thinking is, and I want to know what you guys think about it, because you have all the experience in this arena. If the criteria were broken down even more into, it was passed out into very, very specific points. So execution, precision in the playing, 10 marks, or whatever it is, I'm just calling a number. If we passed it out in more detail, that will then mitigate some of this subjectivity, because then the judge is
Yes.
looking at, okay, this is for execution. So not talking about the arrangement, the ideas, we're not talking about the theatrics or overall presentation, anything like that. What was the execution like? And if it was perfect, they get full marks in that category. What are your thoughts about that? Should we pass it out more so that we eliminate subjectivity as much as possible from the
I
competition?
think we should pass it out a little more, because that way the points would be a little more transparent. Um, there was one judge who attempted to do that recently. In the giving of his marks under each category, he had like 10 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 12 out of 15, like little subcategories as to why we got the marks that we did get. And I did appreciate that very much because it helps you to understand what you need to focus on and what you may need to improve in order to get the total marks in those areas.
True. I too appreciated that. I saw that quite a few of the judges have started doing that within little subcategories within the main one to kind of guide you, and which is good.
But are those judges who are making these subcategories, are they deciding within this overall performance category, which is what, 40 marks, I think, are they
Yes, it is.
deciding this is out of 10, are they making up those numbers? I don't mean the score, but how they're
Yeah.
dividing that
I
14.
think they have a breakdown because in every judging criteria there would be a further breakdown of each of the main categories that you wouldn't see on the score sheet, right? But it's not as passed out as you were saying, Mr. Tangyuk. But there is a breakdown, so I think they were using that to guide them in terms of how to mark. You understand? I'm not totally sure, so don't quote me.
When we look at the current score sheet, and I'm saying, understand what I'm saying by score sheet. Coming out of the semi-finals, Yola phase 2 pan group is 8 points off the first place. That is not a wide margin. It may sound like a wide margin. I remember back in, if I'm correct, when Exodus had won they had gone into the Panorama trailing Renegades by some 22 points, and they bridged that gap into the final on final night. I believe it was 1997. So it's 8 points is neither here nor there. Now, what we've experienced through the years is phase 2 has been very innovative in terms of Dr. Sharp is quite capable of changing around that entire arrangement between now and final night. How do you assess the competition and yourself in competition between now and then? Do you feel the pressure of having to bridge that 8-point gap? Or I know you're an experienced band, so you won't be thrown by something like this. But what sort of mental work goes into preparing yourself for that final night, knowing that you have an 8-point gap to bridge Natasha? Terry, maybe you could answer until you can put your part in before she returns.
Yeah, we eight, as you quite rightly said, 8 points may not be too many to overcome in a competition. We have done made up in excess of 12 and 14 points between semi-final and finals before to come out victorious on a couple of probably 3 occasions. So 8 points. But when you look at where you are, you understand your performance, you understand some of the comments from the judges, you can see where you can improve and make changes as we go along. That would probably give us those extra points, And there's no better person to do that than Dr. Len Bookji Sharp,
Yeah. Natasha, what is your view? Clearly, with having to bridge an 8-point gap between the semi-final heading into the final, I was simply suggesting to Terry that phase 2 is no stranger to changing the music around, if I might put it that way. Doing things differently. If I may say, tweaking the arrangement. How do you, as drill master, foresee the band getting to that point where it can bridge the 8-point gap and How much pressure is that on you all? Natasha.
Probably she's not hearing.
No, I
Oh,
wasn't hearing. I wasn't hearing before. I came back and my volume came back just as he said. How do you bridge that 8 point gap, and
All right.
how do you feel about bridging it? Like
Right.
you said, it's not a far distance. Um, my focus really is on making sure that we do our part. So making sure everybody plays what they need to play flawlessly, and we have performance down, we enjoy the music and all of that. You know, I don't really feel the pressure, right? Of oh God, we had to think them 8 points. I always just maintain a focus. It's like a horse with blinkers.
Hmm.
You keep just always heading to that first place as best as you possibly could, right? And in our case, it's just to make sure that we have all our I's dotted and our T's crossed. After that, it's up to the judges, really.
All right. Just as a general reminder, we're heading into the last 4 minutes of the program. So I have a general question. Um, Phase 2 Pan Group is one of those orchestras that has really been uh, hosting other bands and having out of season events in its yard, accommodating the other West bands. Um, that is something we have to compliment you all on, because for lovers of pan music like myself, it gives us a forum and a fora to hear music out of the carnival season. Um, that synergy that you all have and develop with the other bands, um, and I can call bands. I can say you performed at Desperados yard. Desperados come to your yard. Exodus have been there. I've seen Supernovas there. Uh, how much emphasis have you all placed on developing relationships with other bands? And I'm asking this, and this is the question: mentoring smaller bands, medium bands, sharing your musical ideas, sharing your band's business model to help lift the steel band as an industry generally.
Natasha, you have to answer.
Well, that was really a question for Terry because I am I am I am a road member, so I'm not involved in phase two during the year on the state side and so on.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So
Terry,
I
maybe
don't
you
know
can
if you
help us
heard the
with that.
question, Terry.
No.
The
What?
question is, you all have been forging relationships with other bands clearly for the purposes of hosting bands outside of the general carnival season.
Yeah.
I'm asking, do you all mentor bands? Do you share your business model, share ideas, musical ideas, share not just musical ideas, but business ideas in order to develop the steel band as an industry? Because, if you help other bands, then you're going to lift the quality and the standard. And phase two clearly is a standard bearer. So there's a lot you all have to impart if you choose to do so.
It may not be in any organized way, but we do share information between most of the steel bands, the top steel bands, or I should say most steel bands will share information with each other. And if you have something good going, you will tell someone what you did or what you do. To, right? We have these bands that we work with, and I think it is good for us, but it's something we will do anytime to assist each other.
Dr.
Yeah.
Sanyong, I want to leave you with
At times we will even lend our pants smaller bands that need pans. We lend little instruments here and there, but we work together. And listen, the pan and the brand is a lot bigger than a competition. And the camaraderie is nice. The camaraderie is nice. I don't take it personal. We want to win, but at the end of the day, the music and the brotherly love is much more and it's better than anything else. I always say, I remember this. I had a friend from Renegades during that period when Dr. Jit was winning all these panorama and final night while we up in the savannah. I had a good friend playing with Renegades, and he'd pass and bounce me on my shoulder. He'd say, Terry, we go on with this one. Before you even play a note, and we share that good bond, and that has stayed with me throughout. So I don't have any a band plays well. I enjoy them. I wish them all the best.
I want to say thank you to Phase 2 Pan Group for joining us this afternoon.
Hardcore Phase 2, keep leaving out our sponsor. Hardcore Phase 2. Don't do me that. Hardcore Phase 2. And this time I'd like to say a special thank you to our sponsor, Mr. John Haddad and the Hardcore Group of Companies, who has gone way beyond to assist us, partnering with us, and making us a very relevant organization. And within recent times, I've seen they don't go around boasting, but I think they help quite a lot of bands, and culture in general. If I may take this opportunity, we have our annual Jazz in the Village show next Wednesday, featuring Dr. Len Boogsie Sharp, Romaro Graves out of Barbados, Etienne Charles, Anis Hadid, Duvon Stewart, Douglas Shredder, with our DJ Casey class, and a renowned guitarist, Mr. Jeff Medina. Right? All supported and including Aidan Hadley's band.
I don't it's a free event. What's the cost of attendance?
$200 to attend. It's from 3 to 7 p.m. Gates open at 2.
So
come and have a wonderful time.
I hope the public is listening out there. Thank you to Hardcore Phase 2 Pan Group. Thank you so much for making yourself available, Ms. Natasha Joseph, Drill Master, and Mr. Terry Bernard, Captain. We look forward to a continued relationship with you all, and thanks again. On behalf of
Thank you very much, Dr. Tangyup. Thank you very much, Mr. Faradi, and your station for giving us this opportunity. Thanks. I want to thank Natasha, especially for taking time off of a busy schedule to facilitate us. Natasha, thank you once again.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you guys. Great chatting with you, and all the best for this year.
Thank you very much. Best wishes to you and your company as well too.
Yes. Wish you all the best too, fellas.
Cool.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, that's it for today's edition of Hard Talk. We're talking Pan with the Hardcore Phase 2 Pan Groove and the Katzenjammer Steel Orchestra, hosted by Farid Ali and co-hosted by Dr. Richard Tangyup. Thank you guys so very much for a very informative program.
Thanks so much.